I'm Alan Alda, and this is Clear and Vivid, conversations about connecting and communicating. I'm so happy to be able to talk to you today. I'm such an avid fan of yours. I just love your writing. Thank you for being on the show with me.
And thank you, and I've always enjoyed your movies.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you.
And you just told me a funny story about Toronto.
And it's a true story. We were shooting in Toronto to make it look like New York. And we shot in an alleyway and dirtied it up so it would look like New York with orange peels all over the place and an empty trash can. We went to lunch. And when we came back, some kind Canadian had cleaned it up for us.
I think that would be City Works Department.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever met anybody from Canada I didn't like.
Well, maybe you should spend more time here. You'd find
I said, we're probably alike all over, but that's true. You know, the interesting thing, something I wanted to ask you about was that I saw you somewhere on the internet say this very interesting thing, that a good way to start Little Red Riding Hood as a story would be to start with the sentence, "It was dark inside the wolf."
Don't you agree?
What a great opening that is.
Yeah, well.
What I wanted to ask you about is I think I know why I like that as an opening so much. Why do you like it as an opening?
Well, first of all, it changes the point of view, you know, what you're expecting from the story. And also, it puts the central character in a predicament right on page one.
Mm.
So if you're inside a wolf, the reader or listener or viewer immediately wants to know, how are you going to get out?
How did you get in there?
How did you get in? How are you going to get out?
You know, that getting the audience to ask that question, how did you get inside the wolf, is every playwright's first problem, because they feel the need to load you with all this exposition. And the poor actor has to say all the exposition as if it's not exposition. My favorite example of that would be a play I imagine about Abraham Lincoln, where somebody says to him, "Well, Mr. Lincoln, the war has been on for 3 weeks now," as if he hasn't been reading the paper. You know?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Why didn't somebody tell me that? I was doing the crossword puzzle.
Yeah.
So what that reminds me of what Mamet said, David Mamet once, that a play should begin late and end early.
Oh, he means the plot or the number of hours spent in the theater?
That's probably a good thing to keep in mind too. I think he means where you start with the story. Do you start, everybody says start at the beginning. Maybe you should start with the girl in the wolf's belly.
Yeah, or maybe it's the grandmother in the wolf's belly. There's another possibility.
Right. And to end it before you have to do a wrap up where everything's tied up with a bow.
Well, that's a good way of approaching the endings of novels too, but it used to be that you had to tie everything up with the bow. Or the reader would not be happy.
Now, do you think the reader is not happy if you do tie it up with a bow?
Because now it would be considered a 19th century ending, but maybe tying it up with the bow is a 20th century ending, and maybe we're now into the 21st century and we're going to have to think of some other sort of ending, or maybe 5 endings.
You know, in terms of movies, and I see in your interviews, you do pay attention to movies, so this isn't from left field. I thought endings in movies changed with the first Rocky movie, because he didn't say, "I have to win this fight." He said, "I have to go the distance." And at the end of the movie, he's still standing, but bloody and lost. He's lost the fight, but he's achieved his goal.
Well, what does that tell us? What it tells us is that they were thinking of a sequel.